Russ Hamilton here. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I am a former and retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Started my career at San Quentin in 1989. After I retired, I ended up going to work as a senior juvenile correctional officer. And then I founded a little thing on Facebook called the Keepers of Chaos with a K. I am also often a guest host on Tier Talk with Anthony Ganji on YouTube. I currently work for a company that does rehabilitation and re-entry work for a local county jail where I'm a case manager and for a local probation department. I am also a brand new author. And so today is going to be a little bit about becoming a new author for me. But most of it is going to be about a little lesson, and that lesson is about complacency and how to kill it. So we're going to go right into this. I'm going to start with talking about 5 key chapters that are in my book. And those key chapters are the complacency of routine, the complacency of confirmation bias, deadly assumptions, the complacency of projection, and institutional complacency. So I thought rather than do something completely new, I would just, share a little bit of each one of those chapters with you. And so I'm going to start right here on the first one. I'm just going to read a quick little passage. And every one of these, has everything obviously about the chapter in it. But then at the back of, I believe it's every single chapter, I also put in a lot of stuff for field training officers. So all they have to do is go to it and use it as a lesson. So by the time you're done in here, there's, literally hundreds of questions and potential things that you can point out with regards to those lessons. So on this one, I'm just going to start with the complacency of routine. And when I first started thinking about this book, and even before that, I had to come up with something that really truly defined complacency. I needed something to springboard off of in order to be able to find a way to fight it, quite frankly. And so what I came up with was this little quote here. Complacency is situational awareness perceived but not achieved. Sergeant Russ Hamilton, CDCR, retired 2018. So that was a little while back. But I just want to start with the first little bit here. Complacency is the quiet killer in corrections. It doesn't show up with sirens or alarms. It creeps in through repetition. It hides behind the phrase, "This is how we've always done it." It disguises itself as comfort, then turns that comfort into vulnerability. In this chapter, we're not just going to define complacency. We're going to dismantle it, break it down, call it out, and show you how to defeat it. Because in our line of work, the price of letting your guard down is paid in blood, failure, and regret. So starting with that, the next part is just a little quick passage, the evolution of awareness. When we first start working in a correctional facility, everything is new. Every door, every alarm, every sound triggers attention. That's a rookie's hypervigilance. But over time, familiarity breeds assumptions. We rely on patterns rather than perception. We stop seeing with fresh eyes and start functioning on autopilot. That's where complacency sets in. Routine is not the enemy. In fact, routine is vital to a well-run institution. It provides structure, predictability, and efficiency. But when routine becomes a substitute for thought, when we stop asking why, stop noticing changes, stop challenging what we know, it becomes dangerous. So that is basically the introduction to that first chapter, the complacency of routine. So the next one that I'm going to go to real quick is going to be the complacency of confirmation bias. So confirmation bias really is just where we go looking for evidence that fits our preconceived notions. It's really dangerous, folks, because it means that we can't get outside the trap of the box that we're thinking inside of, and it means that we put ourselves into a position to become vulnerable and to possibly be hurt or even killed. So I'm going to skip to the part in here that I called the silent saboteur of safety. It's hard to pinpoint the most dangerous consequence of confirmation bias. It's the seed of all consequences. It erodes readiness, dulls reaction time, allows escapes to go undetected, lets threats go unchecked, and puts the public, staff, and inmates at risk. The moment our perception is shaped more by assumptions than observation, complacency gains its first and most critical opening. And I don't think I can stress that enough. We see all over the country all the time where there's just this sometimes even systemic breakdown of awareness that goes on, and we become unable to react to it because we don't even know that things have happened yet. This book goes a long ways towards explaining the ways to fix that. So, as we come up here to the next one, this is probably one of the hardest topics to really get through to people on, because the people that really need to hear this are usually a little bit higher up the food chain than we are. And this is chapter 4, and it's called Institutional Complacency. Now, make no mistake, this also kind of in a way relies on us to just go without asking the really hard questions. So, complacency doesn't just reside in individuals. It embeds itself in systems, policies, and workplace culture. When it becomes institutional, it is no longer one officer letting their guard down. It's an entire facility operating as if nothing can go wrong. At the beginning of this chapter, I put a quote in here by Walt Kelly, and I'll just say it right out loud. We have met the enemy, and he is us. Make no mistake, sometimes we are the worst ones to deal with this stuff because we just simply get into a complacent mode and we operated on assumptions going forward until something really bad happens. This book is replete with bad things that happen. And some of those things are bad things that happened to me toward the end of this book, and I'll talk about it a little bit more here. I pick out 5 different national critical incidents and how complacency played a part in all of those. So the next one that I'm going to touch on real quick is the complacency of projection. Projection is the subconscious assumption that inmates think, feel, and act as we do. It's not empathy, it's the false belief that inmates share our logic and our values. This mindset creates blind spots that can lead to disastrous outcomes. Projection begins with subconscious or conscious thoughts like, I would never do that, so they won't either. But correctional staff aren't incarcerated for a reason. We abide by rules, consequences, and a moral compass often absent in those we supervise. Inmates operate under different motivations: power, survival, impulse, desperation, gang loyalty, or defiance. And make no mistake, all of those things really go back to this whole antisocial criminal mindset. And an antisocial criminal mindset means literally against the norms of society. So when we put our own selves into that, we are the paragons, really, of what society is supposed to be. We're supposed to be honest and forthright and willing to sacrifice and, be above the fray. And when we think of ourselves that way, too often we project that into other people, and we do not see how, what a lack of a risk-averse response they have to those things. They feel they have nothing to lose, or they just don't care whether they lose or not at all. So, assuming they think like us leaves us vulnerable. Most inmates display various antisocial behaviors, which are actions that disregard or violate societal norms and the rights of others, often showing a lack of empathy. These can include aggression, deceit, impulsivity, or rule breaking like theft or vandalism. In corrections, such behaviors may manifest as inmate defiance or manipulation, requiring heightened vigilance to maintain safety. This chapter goes on to really break down the critical thinking of that and how we have to get beyond those things so that we're not subconsciously engaging in that. We have to be constantly vigilant, and we have to be constantly questioning the status quo that often exists only in our own minds. And then the last of these 5 chapters that I want to wrap up with you is deadly assumptions. So I'm going to read you the quote that I put in here, another one that I came up with. And it just is a way to show you that assumptions are really, truly one of our biggest enemies at this level. Assumption is the mother of twins. Their names are complacency and catastrophe. The first assumption you make in the day ensures you will meet the first twin, complacency. Complacency then may or may not arrange for you to meet the other, which of course is catastrophe. So I'm going to leave you with that, and then I'm going to discuss just a little bit more of what goes on inside this book, and I'm just going to take it from here. So after we get through all of those, I give you a bunch of really practical tools to look at. And so some of these things are what I call the FOCALS framework. And FOCALS is just a great acronym that I came up for. And what I found is that when I teach people and I go to that place where I try and find ways to make abstract things concrete by putting things into words like this and sometimes giving you an acronym, you'll be able to carry that beyond your training into the actual application of it. So FOCALS just stands for focus deficit, overconfidence, complacency of routine, assumptions, laziness, and success. And yes, success can cause complacency, but more of that is in the book. So I wanted to fill that out for you. And if you just take that with you through your day, you would be surprised what that might stop you from doing or might stop you from not becoming aware of. The next one that I go into a little bit, I primarily kind of shaped this one to go along with transports because really bad things happen on transports a lot of times. So anyway, and that's SOSA, S-O-S-A. And that just stands for searches, observation, and situational awareness. Oftentimes, the beginning of a catastrophe starts with not doing searches correctly. It begins with failure to observe, and then it follows through with a lack of situational awareness. So many times, if people would have just stopped what they were doing during a transport for a moment, looked in the back seat, said, "Hey, dude, show me your hands, show me your feet," to make sure those restraints are still in place, would have solved so many things. Year in and year out, I see these across the country where that one little thing would have stopped an escape or an attempted escape. The next one that I kind of like take people through so that you can maintain awareness inside your housing unit, especially if you're busy doing things of like an ADSEG nature or an SHU, where you have to feed these guys, is about the food port method that I call CLEAR, C-L-E-A-R. And so, number 1, C, check before opening. L, locate all occupants. Sometimes some places only have one, sometimes it's one, or sometimes it's two, but you have to know where they all are before you even approach that thing. E is execute with purpose. Be ready to do the things that you have to do in the order that you have to do them in. A, angle of approach. You always want to make sure that you come at an angle that's as far away from where the threats are as possible. Sometimes that might include making sure that you come at the angle that's closest to a wall. So in case they have a spear, God forbid, it's harder for them to thrust that out there. Just think that through. It will become apparent. And then R is just rapidly secure. When you keep that acronym in your mind and you use it time after time and you do things in the proper order, this will keep you sharp. One of the reasons that I put this in, happened to be right after I got to San Quentin, they were having the jury come in with regards to the killing of Sergeant Hal Birchfield, and he had been speared through a food port. And, or I shouldn't even say a food port, he was speared through the bars actually. But what they started doing very shortly after that is going ahead and welding mesh to things. Well, what does that tell you? Well, that really responds towards what? Institutional complacency, right? They had other stabbings. None of them had been fatal up to that point, and yet they continued to operate in that grayed area that it was okay. And then when somebody died, it no longer was anymore. They started welding on the mesh. They started making sure the food ports were secure. And then after that, supposedly everything was safe, or at least safer. So I wanted people in that situation to really have something to click in and to be able to keep them just a little bit more safe even than that. So those are just three of the little tools that appear in this book. And the last little part of this is, I go through some other things with regards to tactical empathy, being able to put yourself in the inmate's place to figure out what that person may or may not be willing to do, or what they may already be doing in order to escape, manipulate, bring in drugs, bring in some other sort of contraband. And, I've gone as deep as I think I really could in this book to try and put people up on that kind of game. Now, the last little bit that I'm going to talk about here is I decided to do a thing in this book that I call autopsies of critical incidents. And so I talk about 5 critical incidents that happened across the nation, and I think that many of you will recognize these. The first one is the Gonzalo Lopez escape. And that one, with Texas Department of Criminal Justice, he ended up being able to escape from inside of a bus. He stabbed an officer. He ran away. He managed to elude capture, killed a family of 5 in the process. And there were a manifest number of things that went wrong during this transport and even beyond that. And it takes a critical look at that. And when you look at these things, off in the future, if you're, affronted with something similar, hopefully you will take the appropriate action, or something will wake up inside you, something will click, and you'll be able to react in an appropriate manner. The next one I talk about is the Maury Unit hostage crisis, which was the longest correctional hostage crisis in American history. It happened at the Maury Unit in Arizona, and there was, once again, a whole number of things that went wrong. I'm not going to go into each one, but it's really an inside look at how complacency can really get in there in a pernicious and insidious way and just cause everything to go to total shit. The next one is the Kinle Unit escape, also known as the Texas 7. That one is another huge look at a whole lot of complacency that happened that ended up with the killing of a police officer eventually out in the streets. Then we have the death of Deputy John Durham, and that one is a look at what can go bad on a transport, and in this case, regrettably, he ended up pouring out the full measure. And then last but not least is the Dannemora escape. So I think everyone is going to have something that they can take away from this, something that they can look at, something that they can take apart and identify in a way that makes them more safe. My fondest hope is that this book touches someone in a way that saves somebody's life. And so anyway, that's all I have to say for right now. I'm going to wrap all of this up. I'm going to put a link to where this book can be bought. It's on Amazon. The full name of it is Killing Complacency, Tactical Awareness for Correctional Professionals, Essential Strategies to Prevail in the High-Threat Environment of Modern Corrections. So anyway, everyone, take care, stay safe. This is Russ Hamilton. I'm signing out.